Hello, second grade science teachers. Welcome to Science Central. I'm Jamie, and with this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about the second grade science labs and also a little of the procedures and talk about the first science lab, which is the temperature of things. So stay tuned. Okay, so just a little bit about second grade science labs. The cool thing about them is they are really focused on using measuring tools and observation. So the students will be using various tools throughout the year with a definite focus on measurement and even bringing in mathematics. So with those days in the science lab for second grade, you are able to extend those lab days, which is only about 10 days for the year. Each lab is based on a 2-day model, which is different from the older grades 3 through 5. They go 5 consecutive days and they have 5 labs, so they have 25 days. Second grade is only 5 labs, but they're a 2-day model. But because of the integration of science and math, you can have up to about an hour for each of those lab days, because they're doing lots of different things with measurement that you'll see definitely directly links to a standard with math. So yeah, with those labs, they'll be using different tools like beakers and graduated cylinders to find volume of liquids and some solids. They'll learn how to use thermometers, reading the thermometers correctly. They'll also use different measuring tools for length and width, centimeters or inches. So they'll be using that quite often throughout their labs. And also pan balance scale for mass. Find the mass of different objects. Lots of opportunities for math for this one, for balancing the scale. So I really like these pan balances, and the gram weights have the numbers on them. So there's all sorts of different mathematics that you can tie in to these labs with the measurement. Just a reminder that there is not a primary lab manager. The upper grades do have a lab manager. They have a lot more materials and activities spread out over 5 days. So with the second grade labs, they're based on 2-day models. So there's not a lab manager for those materials. So it's just recommended that maybe each teacher on the team sets up for that particular lab. Like the first one, the temperature of things, that one teacher maybe sets up that one, then the next lab teacher sets up that one. So that's the best way I've seen it done around school. Now, lab manager should help you locate general lab materials, because there's items that are used by all grade levels in the science lab, like thermometers and tape measures and gram scales, all those different things, beakers, graduated cylinders. So if you have trouble locating those, please ask one of the lab managers to help you with that. All right, so temperature of things is the first lab. I suggest going on to Safari or Gateway, pulling that playlist and looking at the different items there. Look at the SLAM, which is day 1, day 2 activity work for the students, and also the curriculum map for temperature of things, and also the other resources. There's a couple good songs. Definitely listen to the measurement song. Kids love that one, and it's a pretty recognizable tune from the 80s with new words, but it's fantastic. Kids really love that. I would listen to that one for every lab app actually, because it's all about measurement. So make sure you look at those resources first. And just a reminder, the cool thing is we put all the second grade science labs in a packet that has a curriculum map inside there, along with your student copies. So you won't need to request student copies. They're all right there in that packet. It has a red cover sheet on the top. So make sure you got one of those packets and you go through that. So you can look at those resources. Also, there is what I call SLAM PowerPoint. It basically takes the SLAM and breaks it down piece by piece. It has your I can statements, vocabulary, and then it has nice visuals and pictures that go along with the SLAM. So it's a great way to even have that displayed and use that as a guide as you go through the lab. It's even pushed out to the Kindles, so I've seen classes, the students are able to stay along. They have their SLAM, but also they have the Kindle. They're able to refer to the Kindle and the SLAM pieces there, and the pictures of tools and directions are a little bit more detailed on that SLAM PowerPoint. So check that out. All right, so day one of the temperature of things is pretty basic. Basically, we want the students just to get a thermometer, get one in their hands, and there's plenty of general thermometers in the science lab. If you can't locate those, have one of the science lab managers help you with that. So we want them to recognize that there's two scales, Celsius and Fahrenheit, and looking at those degrees, actually have them look at how the scale is. You know, what are they going up by? Because that's very important. Sometimes the thermometers go up by increments of 1. It could be going up by increments of 2 or 5 or 10. So that's very important that they're able to recognize those values. And they're able to look at the temperature, room temperature, so they can record those two values. And then we want them to put the thermometer in the hand, and they can put their thumb on the bulb and watch it change. So they'll count after 30 seconds and then record the temperature. And I'll have to ask the question, why did it change? Why did the thermometer go up? The liquid inside the thermometer, why did it rise? Hopefully they know that, yes, our bodies do generate heat, so obviously it would raise the temperature. And hopefully they notice. And then they're gonna have a beaker with some water, so about 100 milliliters, and have them predict, okay, what do you think the temperature of the water is? Hopefully they'll make a connection with, wow, the temperature of the water was the same as when we just had it out here. So if it's room temperature water, if you had it sitting out room temperature, make that connection like, wow, it's the same temperature as the air. Interesting, why? So they'll do that and record. Then they'll come down on the SLAM day one, and they're gonna add ice to the beaker. So about, a little bit of ice, 5 to 6 ice cubes in there, and they'll have the thermometer. They'll record the temperature before adding the ice, again, room temperature. Then they'll go ahead and add the ice and have the thermometer inside the beaker. And then they're gonna record the temperature, Celsius and Fahrenheit, with the thermometer and the ice water at 1 minute, at 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and 5 minutes. So they'll see those values. They'll see hopefully that the thermometer drops in temperature, which is really cool. You'll have to check sometimes the thermometers aren't working, so that does happen in science. So they'll have to make sure that they actually have a tool that is working properly for them. And then they'll just make some connections, make some observations. Why did the temperature decrease with the ice cubes? And would there be a time where the temperature might start to rise again if they kept recording temperature beyond the 5 minutes? What would they expect? What would be a good prediction? Let's say they went to all the way to 15 minutes or longer. Would the temperature keep decreasing, or would it get to a point where it might start rising again? So all sorts of different questions that you can ask them as you're just facilitating. The kids are doing all the learning, they're doing the discovery, and you're just going around asking good questions. All right, so the second day of temperature of things has them doing 3 different measurements. They're going to look at air temperature, water temperature, and land. Again, focusing on nature of science tools, but also it does correlate with what they're doing in core with patterns and weather and things like that. So we try to do our best as trying to coordinate with science lab with what they're doing in core. It doesn't have to match up because they're really focusing on nature of science and tools and mathematics, but we tried to line it up as best we could. So they'll take some thermometers outside, small group. They'll put a thermometer in shade, record the temperature. They'll go out to a nice sunny location and take the temperature in a sunny location, and then also back in the science lab. So having what, and then comparing those temperatures for air temperature. And then the next one they're going to do is take a beaker and have a cup of water. Going to have that out in the sun and shade. So they'll take temperature of a cup of water in the sun, and then they'll also take temperature of a cup of water in the shade and see if there is a difference with that one. And then the final piece is land temperature. So they'll put a thermometer in the grass, so find a nice grassy area, put it in there. Dirt, so actually what they can do for that one is the bulb, so just make sure that the thermometer is just below the dirt, like a dirt or sandy area. Totally cool. So have them place that in there, see if there's a difference. And then cement, so just like on the ground, in a real hot area or asphalt or something like that. So that'd be totally cool. Again, they're just reading the thermometer correctly and making some observations based on the measurement and data they're collecting. All right, thanks for joining me for this edition of Science Central, and I'll be back a little later with the second science lab. Again, just remind you to make sure you preview everything, preview the SLAM day 1, day 2, preview the curriculum map, which is, you should have received a copy of that. It's also on Safari. Definitely play the measurement song as a hook. They do love that song. And there's a couple other resources in the curriculum guide, some other songs and resources. Check out the SLAM PowerPoint that helps guide you through the entire 2 days of the lab, and it should go pretty good. And remember, you have up to 60 minutes for science lab those days. Remember, they're a 2-day model, you have 5 labs, so it's only 10 days. So you're able to combine math and science for those days. All right, thanks a lot for joining me. We'll see you next time.